from the Michael Care Center. And today we'll be talking about reading, one of my favorite topics, reading. Are you hearing me loud and clear? Nod your head so I can see, or type in the chat so I know if everybody's hearing me. Go ahead and ensure that you have your correct name registered so we can identify you. I see somebody in the chat by the name of Samsung S9. You might need to rename yourself so we can identify you, please. So we're getting started in 10 seconds. So today, we will be discussing the topic, raising eager readers. Practical tips to boost literacy at home. Our objectives this morning is to discuss the basics of reading, to learn ways to help your children to develop a love for books, to find out how to help your children to read with understanding, and to learn how to make the reading-writing connection. So since we're talking about reading, I want your participation this morning. I just want us to do a little activity to warm up. I want you to help me to make up a little story. Because, you know, in order to be good readers, our children have to understand what a story is. They have to understand the different parts of a story and all of that. So can we participate? I need a few persons to turn on their microphones. And I need, what we're going to do, I will start, and you will add, at least 3 persons will add maybe about 1 sentence just to complete the story for me. So who wants to volunteer this morning? Just to make up this little story. Do I have any volunteers? Any volunteers? Simone, Clayton, are you willing to be one of our volunteers this morning? Geran?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, so let's begin. It was a dark and stormy night. My computer screen went black. 1 sentence to the story.
A dark figure came on the screen and flashed green eyes with sharp vampire-looking teeth.
Excellent. 1 more person, quickly add to that for me. Zidian. Anybody else?
Yes, miss, I got so frightened I run to the room.
This is really a scary story for real. All right, 1 sentence, please.
So I got so scared I run to my mom's room.
Excellent. 1 more person, quickly. See if we can put an ending to this story now. A very exciting ending. One more person, quickly. Nobody else wants to volunteer? No, if we're going to help our children, you know, we have to start practicing from now. So we need 1 person to close out this story for us this morning before we head into the presentation. Who will that brave person be? Nobody? So we're going to...
Miss, you want me to end it for you?
Oh, yes. Go ahead, please.
So I got so scared I ran to my mom's room.
Yes.
My mom took me in her arms and said, "Hush, baby, everything will be okay." The end.
The end. Excellent. So you see, wasn't that fun just getting involved in a story and, you know, just everybody thinking about what could happen next and so forth? That is exactly what reading should be like for our children. And so today, as we delve into this topic, my aim is that we will put our all into it. We will think, we'll bring ourselves into the presentation. We'll put ourselves and our children into the presentation so that we will be able to walk away, you know, being more competent, being more ready to help our children to be eager learners. So let me share some quick facts with you regarding literacy. According to the Jamaica Foundation for Lifelong Learning, in 2014, they did a study, a survey, and it was found that 87% of Jamaica's population is illiterate. So our literacy rate is currently at 87% as of 2014, which means that 13% of our children, or 13% of the persons who would have been, we look at in the population, are unable to read. So you see, reading is a big challenge. It is said that a child is 90% likely to remain a poor reader at the end of grade 4 if a child is a poor reader at the end of grade 1. So imagine that if you have a grade 1 child and that child is not able to read after they have completed all of grade 9, chances are by the time they get into grade 2, it's going to get worse. By the time they get into grade 3 and grade 4, it's going to be worse because the gap will be wider. So how can we bridge that gap? How can we help our children to be eager learners so they can develop the skills they need to learn to be able to become competent readers? It says a number of books in the home significantly correlates with higher reading scores. So the more books you have at home, it gives the child or the children in the home a better opportunity to be able to learn to read. And they become more eager readers too if the books are in the home and they're being read. Because I know I've heard of persons having the books at home. There are a lot of books in the home, but none are being read. So we have to ensure that reading is taking place at home. Because literacy is such an important topic, and, you know, and it's one of the biggest issues now. So we have to make sure that as parents, we are making a difference at home to contribute to it. Now, what is the importance of reading? Or how do we build literacy? Through reading, of course. Just like driving, literacy is a skill. So the more you do it, the better you get at it. But why is it important? Because it builds imagination and awareness. As you read, a child becomes more imaginative. You know, they start to think on the stories. They start to think about the setting and the characters. And so it builds their awareness and their imagination. It also helps them to increase focus and concentration. It improves memory, helps with communication. It's a source of entertainment. Parents and child, when they read together, they get to bond. And it also boosts the learning and brain development. The more a child reads, is the more their brain develops. The synapses in the brain improve and increase. And so the children become more alert and aware and they learn more consequently. So what are some literacy skills that we need to ensure that our children have? These include the sounds of language. So what are the letter sounds? What are the sounds in the words spoken? The children should be able to differentiate those if they're going to become good readers. The awareness of print, to know the difference between letters and numbers, to be able to differentiate between a sentence and a paragraph, or a phrase and a sentence. Those have to be able to combine words or letters to make words. Also, letter sound relationship, which is phonics. The child needs to understand how to blend the letters, the different letters. So knowing the letters is important, but are they able to blend the letters to be able to pronounce words when they come upon new words? That is important as well. Vocabulary is also extremely important, because if a child is reading and they're not understanding, if they don't know the words and the meanings of the words in the passage or the sentence or story they're reading, then they're not really reading. They're just calling words. Spelling is also important. It ties in with reading. The more you're able to read, the better speller you should be. And spelling also helps in differentiating words that are similar. So when you're reading, you know the difference between two words that are similar, you know, and be able to understand what those mean in context of what you're reading. Comprehension is also one of the skills that is very important in literacy, as we said. If you are reading and you're not comprehending, you are not reading. So we have to make sure that all of these skills are being built in our children in order to make them better readers. So what is the bottom line of literacy? It says that children are made readers on the laps of their parents. Parents, it is very important for you to set aside time each week for family reading time. You know, this is a time when every family member is either reading individually or you're reading together. That makes a difference. Bedtime stories, as much as possible, also makes a difference, because when you read to a child before bed, what it sets a tone for them to have better dreams. It helps them to think more clearly and to also, you know, look forward to the next day, having gone to bed, bonding with their parents. It also is greater involvement that you have with your child, the more your child will also develop a love for books and for reading. So let's look now at some reading tips that can make a difference. This is where we get practical. So how do we start? We have to create a culture of reading at home and ensure that all the reading materials are at the children's reading level. So what you can do, you can label items in the home. You can set up a home library, a reading nook. And a reading nook is one of the new concepts now, where you set up a really posh place in the home. You put some pillows there, you know, you make it very comfortable and inviting, so the children would want to join you in reading, or they want to go there by themselves to get lost in books. Also, one of the things that we recommend is for you to limit screen time. You know, children can get opportunity to be on screen, to watch TV or to use your tablets at times, but not for extended periods. We have to recognize reading books is also important. And so when we limit the screen time and we show them that there are other options, including books, then that also helps to create a balance and keeps them interested in books. Also engaging in storytelling. While you're driving the car together, you could be telling each other stories. You know, back in the days, we used to have people telling Anansi stories and all sorts of stories. Big boy stories used to be a big thing. You know, have we gone away from that now, or are we losing it? It really makes a big difference when we read with our children and we tell stories with our children, to our children. Engaging in meaningful conversation is also another way to build reading skills, because it's developed speaking and listening. And children who are able to speak well and listen well usually become better readers. And so what can parents talk with their children about? They can talk about family history and photos. They can discuss the news and current events. COVID is going on now. Talk about it with your child or your children. You know, even politics, sports, weather, whatever it is, just have conversations. Let it not just be about giving instructions, you know, telling them what to do, when to do it, but just having normal conversations, developing, you know, them into developing their critical thinking skills. So the more you converse with them, is the better they will be able to have good conversations and to be able to read. You can also discuss your feelings, your hopes and desires, problems that need solving. You know, ask them specific questions when they come home from school, or now that they're home most of the time, ask them what is happening in class. You know, what did you learn in social studies class today? Be specific with your questions. Listen to a simple radio program when you get the chance and talk about the content of the radio program. There are different ways to engage your children in conversations. Now, one of the most important things in developing eager readers is for you as parents to be a good role model. Parents make the best role models because you spend the most time with your children. So guess what? Get caught reading. Allow your children to see you reading. Laugh when they're nearby and you're reading a book and it's funny. Laugh out loud so they can see you enjoying the book. The more children associate enjoyment with books, is the more likely they will be interested. Reading aloud is also important. It is said that reading aloud with children is known to be the single most important activity for building the knowledge and skills they will eventually require for learning to read. Let that sink in a moment. Reading aloud. So do we send our children off just to read by themselves? You know, go pick up a book and read? No, we need to encourage them to read aloud. Let them listen to themselves as they read so that they can modulate the way they read in terms of fluency and the expression, you know, to put expression into what they're reading, because that helps with the understanding as well. And students and parents can read aloud together and even record themselves reading aloud. That is also a good way to do some read aloud with your child. Now, here are some tips for reading with young children. Set aside time for reading every day, every single day. The more you do it, the better for the child's development. Help the child to select books of interest. So if you know that your child is interested in cars or dolls or football, help them to select books that they like. It is more likely that they will want to pick up a book if they're interested in it. Position yourself when you're reading so your child can see the words. So you want them, if they're sitting on your lap or they're sitting on the bed or wherever they're sitting on a seat, hold the book up so they can see what is in the book. Point to the words so they can see you pointing and moving from left to right. Point out the cover page and the spine and the different parts of the book. Run your fingers across the page as you read so they can understand the return sweep. When you read, your eyes make a certain motion, so you want them to be able to mimic that. Talk about the pictures, build their interest. Those are some of the things that you can do with your young child when they're reading. For the older children, you want to set a purpose. Help the children to understand that when they're reading, you know, they should know why they're reading. So they can read for appreciation and enjoyment. They should know when they're reading for information, for critical understanding, and for study. So if they have to read their textbooks at home and they're studying, they're going to be reading it a different way from if they're reading for enjoyment. And we're going to get into that in the next slide. Point out the contents page as well, and the title and different parts as well. So for the more advanced or the older children, you know, there are additional things in the book that you can point out. You can look at the charts and tables or the diagrams in the book and discuss them. Explore words using dictionaries. So if your child has a dictionary, well, your child should have a dictionary, you know, and you come upon a word while you're reading and they don't understand that word, then that's the opportune time to teach them dictionary skills. You find the word together and you read the words and you try to discuss it in terms of what it means in the sentence and to apply it to other aspects of their lives as well. And also, it is important to take turns reading. When a child becomes a good reader, it doesn't mean that the parents automatically stop reading to them. You take turns reading with your child, nonetheless, because that keeps them interested and it makes it shows to them that you're still being a good role model for reading. Now, while you're reading, also, there are some other things you can do, such as you can have a book chat at the end. You can ask some deep questions, such as who is the favorite character? Why? If you could change the ending of the book, what would it be? What do you think is the author's main message? Do you agree with the message? Why or why not? You know, those are some of the things you can talk to your child about after you're finished reading a book or while you're reading the book, just to get their engagement and to see that they're understanding what is being read. Now, we talked a little bit about reading for enjoyment, but when you're reading for information, for understanding and study, there are different ways that you will have to read. And so it's important for you to also understand these and to be able to teach your child or to model to your child. So for example, we can read by skimming. If you have a lot of reading to do, a big textbook to read and you have limited time, skimming is a good way. You can read by scanning, and you can also do close reading, which means that you're going to spend more time looking at the information. So skimming and scanning are reading techniques that use rapid eye movement. So you're looking for the keywords and you're moving quickly through the text. In skimming, you're reading rapidly in order to get a general overview of the material. And in scanning, you are looking for specific facts. So when they're just reading, you know, you ask them to read their textbooks, they have to figure out whether they need to skim, scan, or whether they need to do close reading. Now, for close reading, your child chooses a specific passage and they analyze it in fine detail. It is as if they're using a magnifying glass, and they comment on the points of the style and their reactions as a reader. And close reading is important because it is the building block for larger analysis. So if a child wants to do well in school, to develop close reading skills, to be able to read with full understanding. And one of the ways I usually tell parents, one of the things I usually tell parents to have on hand is a highlighter in case their child wants to highlight a text, or they can have sticky notepads that they can use and make notes on the side while they're reading and so forth, as that helps to build understanding. Now we're going back to the joy in reading, because as you remember, this workshop is for us to build an eagerness in our, the children's, they're eager readers. So we want them to be eagerly anticipating reading when we say it's reading time. So it says that reading should not be presented to children as a chore or a duty. It should be offered as a gift. Perhaps you have one of those children who immediately begins to cry or to protest when you ask them to pick up a book, and you're scratching your head wondering what to do. I've had parents coming in to the center here for assessment, and they say to me, Miss, my child doesn't like to read. Every time I ask him to read a book, he goes and he cries. He starts crying. And I would say to the parent, that's one of the reasons, because the child is crying because the child has a problem with reading. If you have a problem with reading, you're not going to be excited about it. And so we have to realize how important it is for us to associate enjoyment with reading, so our children don't feel like it's a punishment, So we're going to look into that a little bit more. Here are some fun reading ideas that you can use. You can use drama. So when your child is reading, bring out the characters in the book to read with excitement and dramatize a part of the story. Ask a child to act out a little part for you. What happened in the story of the 3 little bears? Okay, do you want to be Mama Bear or Papa Bear? And let us act it out a little bit, just to bring it alive. You can also read different things. So karaoke is a fun thing to do. It is something, every child likes music. Incorporate music in reading. Karaoke is one way to incorporate music in reading. So you have, for example, if you go on YouTube and you type in karaoke, you will see some of the videos that has the words to the songs, and it's done in a way that you can follow along. You can do some of those for some simple songs with your children. Family book clubs. When I was my parents used to buy a lot of Nancy Drew books, and my sister and I, we used to exchange the books, and we'd read each other's book and we'd talk about it. You can do something like that as a family as well, to bring out the reading, the fun in reading at home. Sharing rhymes, poems, songs, reading food labels, looking at picture books and describing the pictures. Those are all ways to bring out reading and to encourage your child to learn to read. Read together the instruction for a new household item to find out how it works. You have some children, especially the boys, they don't want to read any fairy tale books, but maybe if you pick up an item because they're interested in building things, you can pick up the book that comes with an appliance and say, okay, let us look in this book and see how we can figure out how to read this book. If we can figure out how to read this book and how to set up the item or how to use it. Reading games are also important. Scrabble is a very good one, as it helps with spelling, and you can start simple in terms of building words. Word puzzles is also, so you have, there's a word search puzzles plus crossword puzzles. There are different kinds of word puzzles that you can use, and they start simple, so that you can find the one that is appropriate for the level of your child. Pictionary is also a good game. Vocabulary. Taboo is another one. If you have Taboo, you will find that it's a good way to build vocabulary in children. Scatergories is one that we used to play as children, where we'd say ABC, fast or slow, and you'd write down the name of an animal, place, thing, and whatever letter you will land on, then you would have to find a letter for each item, for each column. And that's a good way. Those are basic games that doesn't need any materials, don't need much for you to be able to engage in those with your children. It is said that for a child, play is not a luxury, it is a necessity. So why not incorporate play to make reading fun? You know, so as much as possible, incorporate play. Tap into technology as well. Audio and video recordings, because children are fascinated by technology. I have a 7-month-old baby, and every time I take up my cell phone or my laptop, he's reaching for it already. It's almost like it's instinctive in them to have a love for technology. And so incorporate it in reading to make reading fun. There are a lot of reading websites that you can use. I have a few listed here. You can probably take a screenshot, picture of the screen, so you can go and check out some of these sites. Book Fusion app is one that the Ministry of Education is pushing a lot now. I've been recommending it for some time now. It has a lot of books on it that your children, I see a hand raised. I'm coming to you, Jareen. Let me just finish this thought. Right, so the Ministry of Education is pushing this one right now, and it is one that you can go on to read books. It has a lot of the Jamaican books on it. Do you unmute yourself and go ahead for me, Jerry?
Yes, good morning. Is there a possibility that we...
Right?
This has been a...
Jaran,
hello?
Jaran. Yes, I'm listening.
Good morning.
Yes, hello?
Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, I'm hearing you. Go ahead.
This has been a good presentation so far. Is there a possibility that we can get this in our emails or so?
Oh, certainly you will get a copy of the presentation in your email at the end. Is that all?
Yes, thanks.
You're welcome. So don't forget to tap into technology, because it also helps to engage your children in authentic and meaningful experiences. Okay, so while reading, it is also important to make the reading-writing connection. Reading and writing go hand in hand. You can't get around it. If you have a great reader and they go into an exam and they can't write, nobody will know that. There's no way getting around the relationship that between reading and writing. And so from an early age, we have to build that up in our children, that if you are going to read, you have to also learn to write. And that is what encompasses literacy, reading and writing. So how can we help our babies, even at the baby stage, for them to learn to write? We can use magnetic letters. They can rearrange them even on the fridge. You know, put them on the fridge and have them rearrange it to spell maybe the first letter in their names, and until they can get the second letter, until they can spell their entire name. Then you go to other little words, cats and mats and boy, girl, you know, so they can arrange those letters. That's writing. After they are done that, then they can write those words in their books. You know, that is if they're able to write at that stage. But that is one way to bring out writing, even at the most early stage. Children who have challenges with writing sentences, or they're not at that level yet, they can draw pictures and label the pictures, you know, using words. They can also dictate their sentences to somebody who will in turn write it for them. So we have to make sure in all the reading that we're doing, writing is included in that as well, so that we can build up the entire literacy skills of the child. Letters and text messages are great ways to get children to write. No matter how much, as I said before, children love technology. So I'm sure if you have them on WhatsApp, you can WhatsApp your child for questions sometimes, and you know, show them how to use it, show them how to use a predictive text if they have issues with spelling and so forth. Exchange letters, teach them to send emails to other family members. Get writing involved in the reading process as much as possible. When you're doing your shopping list for the supermarket, Ask your child to help you to prepare the shopping list. Not only will they be incorporating reading and writing, they're also learning to be responsible so that they will see that, you know, what it entails in being an adult in terms of proper planning and so forth. Filling out little forms is also important. When you go, wherever you go, most of the times to do business, you have to fill out forms, whether it be an application form, or even if you're going to send money, you have to fill out forms. Help your child to fill out little forms. That helps to provide a practice in writing their names, in writing the date, their address, and basic things like that. So reading should be practical and functional, especially if it's being done at home. And writing should be a part of the process. Journal writing is also important. Well, it's also one of the ways that you can bring out writing. Usually, when I was a classroom teacher, my students would have journal writing every single week, and we would choose topics that they're interested in, because you don't want to ask a child to write on something that they have no interest in. They will have more content when they are interested in the topic. And so buy them a little notebook. Say, this is your journal. Figure out what you can think, what you can write. And you can read that together. Build writing skills. Right? They can also make stories. They can make an alternate ending to a story that they have read, or they can write entire stories from beginning to end. No matter how young they are, they can write simple stories. Once they understand that the story needs a character, the story needs a setting, and you know, they can come up with the events in the story, whether it be problems to be solved or whatever it is that they have seen in daily life, they can write a simple story about it. Cartoons. Children love cartoons, so incorporate that as well. They can make up their own cartoons. You can even cut out the cartoons from the newspaper. There are some, I don't know if they're still in the newspaper. There used to be some that didn't have any words, and I used to incorporate those in my teaching. I used to ask the children to think about what they think the characters were saying, and they would write what they think the characters are saying. So you can do that as well. You can even do that with pictures from the newspaper. They cut out the newspaper pictures and they write a sentence or two based on what they have seen. I heard somebody a while ago, were you trying to say something? Was somebody trying to get my attention? No? All right, so we're moving right along. Now, here are some tips to help your child with writing, because literacy writing is a major problem as well. I've had children here at the center being tested who were excellent readers, and they could not write at that level, at the same level that they were reading. As a result of that, they were failing their examinations. Do you know that one of the main reasons so many of our children are failing the PEP exams, or when it was GSAT, is because of their limited writing skills? And so we have to tie that into literacy as much as possible. So here are some other tips that you can use to help your child with writing. Keep bright Post-its or notepads handy. So at home, you buy the bright colors, because those are the ones that will attract them. Support your child and help them with reading, to read their writing aloud. So when they have written something, help them to read it aloud. If they need to rewrite it, then you help them, guide them along to make sure it sounds. They need to understand that writing is about thinking in your head, figuring out what you want to say, putting it on paper, then reading it to make sure that's exactly what you meant. That's all writing is. So they need to understand that. The moment they understand that, they will become better writers. You can also display your child's work in the house in a prominent position. So don't hide it somewhere in their bedroom. Put it somewhere so that people who come in can see it and be proud of your child, whatever they have written. It doesn't have to be perfect, because in learning, I always say we're not seeking perfection. We just want to make sure that our children are learning and that they're interested in learning and that they're doing their best. You can also create an idea bag. So it's a bag of ideas, or you can have a folder with writing prompts. So you can have maybe topics of a story, or the beginning of a story, or the ending of a story, or pictures, brochures, photographs, movie tickets, pictures from magazines, Whatever it is, you can keep it in a bag and they can pull out one, or you can keep it in a folder and you select one and they can write on that each at least once per week, you know, just to get their the practice in. Because the more they practice, just like with reading, the more they practice to read and the more they practice to write, is the better they will get. Now, we have some things that we want you to remember. Reading together is a valuable thing to do. Do not just send your child in a corner to read. Read together with your child. It makes a world of difference. When I was in high school and I was doing my CSEC exams, I would sit at the dinner table and I would read my textbook and I would ask my mother to ask me the questions that were at the end. And that aided my understanding. As a matter of fact, the subjects that she did that with, I got straight A profiles in those. So the more you help your children, you never underestimate the value of your presence in reading. Just being there with them and reading together can make a world of difference. Reading also increases your child's language, understanding, and their worldview. So reading with your child helps them to become, they will be more fluent in the way they speak, or more eloquent in the way they speak. They will have a better understanding of words. They will have a better understanding in general. They'll be able to think critically. Critical thinking skills is one of the things, the main things that many of our children lack right now, that is causing so much fear in doing the PEP exams. And so if we should tackle that by asking them some questions when they read, a why and the how, and those deep thinking questions when we're reading with them, then it will make a difference. It will take away that fear that a lot of them have about the PEP exams. Changes their worldview as well. The more you read, you know, reading takes you places. Reading, you don't have to, some people would have never gone to Afghanistan or Paris or any of those countries, but just by reading about it, you can imagine the things there, and it broadens your understanding of the world and the overall view of the world. So the more you read is the more, you know, your worldview increases. Reading is also an important way to link between the spoken words and the written words. So for children who are just learning and they're reading, when you're reading with them, they will understand that, hey, these are the words in the print that I see when I'm reading, but when I'm writing, it's also the same thing. It's whatever I build action, and that will help them also not to fear reading and writing so much. Now, is everybody hearing me? I see my here. All right. So make reading fun. I have to emphasize that every step of the way. Make reading fun. It says that our priority, our number one priority is reading is a positive and enjoyable experience for students and parents. So if you are not enjoying the book that you're reading with your child, I don't think your child will enjoy it either. We have to make it as enjoyable as possible. The less tears, the better. The text that students bring home to read should be at their independent reading level, so, or the text that you buy. So if you go to the bookstore, don't just buy a book because it is pretty or because you like it. Make sure that the child can read it. Make sure it is at their reading level. So if you have a child who is reading at the grade 2 level, but they're in grade 6, it makes no sense to buy a grade 6 book if they're not going to be able to read it, unless you're going to read it for them and with them. So we want to make sure reading with the child is there, but we also want them to be able to read independently. So make sure there are books available at their independent reading level. So if their independent reading level is at if they're at the word stage, then it's the word books that they need. If they're at the sentence stage and they need small books with just sentences, then if they're at a higher level, then you can buy the books with paragraph and those without pictures. Home reading should not be a stressful experience for anyone. If your child is stressed out by reading, it means something is wrong. So we have to make sure we change that, from the beginning. The moment we see your child getting frustrated, we need to figure out why they're getting frustrated, and we need to address that so that we don't lose them, and that eagerness to read. So we have some final thoughts here. It says there is no substitute for books in the life of a child. And we started out by saying that the more books you have in the home is the more likely that your child will be a good reader. And so we have to purchase books. When you're giving gifts, give books. Or if you're going to buy other things, make sure books are included in it. Parents have to recognize that the value that they place on reading is the same value that our children will place on reading. It's not do as I say, but don't do as I do. You have to live by the same principles that you want your children to be guided by. So if you want them to be good readers, if you want them to be eager readers, then get them books and let them see you reading as well. It says, today a reader, tomorrow a leader. Do you recognize that the people in society who we are most impressed by, they're excellent, they're very eloquent, and one of the things that make them that way is because they read a lot. The more they know, we're impressed sometimes with the way particular individuals would express themselves, and we said, wow, she's so intellectual, she's so smart. It's because they are good, they're avid readers. So we want to make our children avid readers. Whether or not they're good readers is a different story, because there are picture books that children can read as well. So whatever is there that they can read, or whatever level they're at, then reading can be a part of their lives. Now I've deliberately left some time. We have some time to take questions. If you feel there's something important that you wanted to see or hear today, but you didn't hear it, you can ask a question. I'll be willing to respond as much as I can. So do we have any questions? Let me check the chat. One question.
Yes, Miss, good morning.
Yes, good morning. With whom am I speaking?
You're speaking with Judith.
Okay, hi Judith, how are you today?
I am okay.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. This workshop is for parents, right?
Yes.
So will there be another session, because my parents actually missed this one?
Your parents missed this one. Okay, so I will talk with we'll see how we can best we can arrange that for another session like this.
Please do, because
Okay.
I really want them to get this kind of information.
Okay, so we will get back to you on that.
Okay, Miss, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Is there anything that wasn't clear that you want me to explain or add more information?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Sophia.
Hi, Sophia.
Okay, so I have a 2-year-old child boy. And
could you repeat that? You were breaking up a little bit.
Okay, I have a 2-year-old son at home.
Yes.
And hold on a minute. And as you know, they're not allowed to go out. He was at a preschool, but then we had pulled him because of the pandemic.
Yes.
What I want to know now is what are some of the things I can do to help him to move along, because he's pretty quick. So
he's pretty quick. Give us a quick idea of what that means in terms of
he's saying his ABCs and he's counting. Although sometimes he'll drop a number or so, but he's counting to 10. I try to get him to color, but at this age he's not.
The skills, right?
Right.
So it will take some time for his fine motor skills to build up. But some of the fun activities you can do include rhymes, repeating little rhymes with him. And you know, they have those little books those little board books that you could look through and look at the words to go with. So you'll find the letters. So he knows his ABCs, but you can also connect that with actual print. So you can buy those little board books, and they have the cloth books as well. Those are very good if he's a child that might tear the books. So, you know, you can use the cloth books, and some of them have little crinkly sounds to them, and they have pictures, and they might have little words and the alphabet and so forth. That's a good way to get him engaged at this time. Sharing rhymes too, repeating little rhymes and have him repeat after you, you know, little poems that you would have learned or little gems at school that you would have learned. You'll be surprised how quickly they can pick up on that. Songs, singing different kinds of songs. You know, and I see children now love the shark songs. You know, Amazon Music or YouTube Music has a lot of those, so you can engage. There are also a lot of audiobooks online too that you can tap into. Even YouTube has persons who are reading books to children. So you can also get him involved in some of those, you know, just opening up the possibilities for him to be exposed to reading as much as possible from now. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. All right, let me ask you now, are there any practical things? I know you spoke to the fine motor skills, gross motor skills, those kind of things. Yeah. But so what can I do, like with the Play-Doh? Because I have the Play-Doh, but how can I get him to like use the Play-Doh?
Use the Play-Doh. Okay, so one of the best ways to get him to use the Play-Doh is to form some of the letters. So he knows, does he know any of the letters at all?
No,
like, so he doesn't know any of the letters. So what you could do, you could be forming the letter for maybe the first letter for his name, and you could take turns forming it with the Play-Doh to see if he's able to do that, you know, rolling the Play-Doh and making the formation for letters, and even making different things with the Play-Doh as well. And to be able to work on his vocabulary. So you could make, say, let us try to make a dog or make a cat, or, you know, whatever it is. So build his vocabulary, spend time just having discussions with him too. You know, at 2 years old, a child might be very curious. So you want to satisfy that curiosity by asking them questions or answering their questions as much as possible. So use a Play-Doh to make, to form the letters or to form numbers, or to just roll to count, you know, different things, just to build the fine motor skills. At his age, writing is not so important. He's not, you know, don't force him to write, because you want to make sure that his fingers are at the stage where they can hold a pencil properly. But you can give him little things to do, like to pick up little items to put in, you know, maybe like putting rings over a bottle or things like that, just to build his fine motor skills. But we're talking about reading now, so we want to stay on topic. So that's why I was saying to you, you know, the letters, he may remember them. You know, the more you do them, the more likely you will remember the letters. So form them out with the Play-Doh and use them to match them to the ones that he would maybe in print. So you can get picture cards with the letters on them. You know, they sell those cards that you can use with the letters of the alphabet and the numbers as well. That's one good way. Reading with him every single day too makes a difference. So you don't have to read the book in its entirety. And reading the same book over and over and over again is also recommended, because what that helps them to do is to delve deeper into the content of the book. So the more they hear the stories, the more they understand a little more of the story, and the more they're able to relate to the story. And you can ask them to point to pictures in the story. Show me the boy in the red hat. Yeah, what color hat is this? You know, if you have introduced colors. What is the boy doing? Show me the boy who is running. Which one is, you know, swimming? Which one is, you know, just talk about the pictures in books, just to build his vocabulary.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's really helpful.
You're welcome. Any more? I see a few mentioned. Somebody had said that Nancy Drew was their favorite books and Hardy Boys. Yes, welcome to the club. Me too. You can use memes in the same way. Okay. Comprehension seems to be my child's weakness. He likes reading with or without me. but comprehension is a problem. Okay, so comprehension is at different levels. So what we can do is to start where the children are. If they are at the literal level of comprehension, you want to start there and then build on it. And when I say literal level, I mean like who, what, where, when, you know, those basic questions that they can read the story and tell you who is in the story, you know, where are they, what are they doing? Those are literal level questions. Those are the basic levels of, that is the basic level of comprehension. And so what you will find, a lot of our children are stuck at that level because those are the most of the questions that they're able to answer. So what you have to do, start there, make sure that they can understand, know the difference between who and what and when and where, and build on those. So you can choose, say today we're going to focus on who. So who is this, you know, who does that? And, you know, talk about who. Then you go to what, you know, what did you learn? What is happening in the story? You know, you use the what questions. How about when? When did it happen? When did the story take place? When did the boy decide to do, you know, and you look at before, during, and after when it comes to when. But you want to move up to why and how, because that is where the deep comprehension comes in. So what you will find is that sometimes when you ask how questions, the children might confuse it with other types of questions. So you have to model how to answer those questions. And one of the ways to model it is to use think aloud. So while you are reading, you can say to the child, I wonder why the boy did this. And you can say something way out like, I wonder if he did it because he is not smart. And the child might say, no, man, he did it because, you know, so you try to give wrong answers to force them to think. You don't want to always just be telling them. So you can, you know, give a wrong answer first, you know, like a mock answer just to see if they're thinking. So you ask different types of questions. In terms of comprehension, problem solving comes into. A lot of times we solve our children's problems for them instead of helping them to figure out things. And the more we do that, is the more we inhibit their comprehension skills. So we ought to allow them to solve some problems on their own as well. So if they're having a problem with a sibling and they can work it out together, don't just go there and give them the solution. Call them aside and together you work out how is the best way to solve that, because that is building up problem solving skills in your children. And the more you do that, is the better their comprehension skills will be. All right, so that was for Simone, who asked me that question. Does anybody else have any question? How can I improve word attack? All right, so that is from Shanice. Shanice Seaton. How can you improve word attack? Are you hearing me?
Hello, morning. Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, go ahead, please. Okay, all right, so I'll go ahead and answer your question. So word attack skills has to do with how you're able to decode the words in, when you come up on a word, whether or not you can figure out what the word is by either blending the letters or breaking the word apart. Now, what you will find is that there are some children who are not good with word attack skills simply because they don't understand that words are made up of sounds. So we have to go back to basic and remind children that words are made up of sounds. So when I say a word like boat, what sounds do I hear? I hear B, and I hear O, and I hear T. Now, that is called phonemic awareness. Understanding the word, the parts of the word, the sounds that are in the words. That is totally different from phonics because we're not even talking about the combination of the letters yet. We're talking about how the sounds are combined. So when children understand that the same letters that they have learned, the ABC, is connected to the different sounds they hear in the words, that is the basic way in building up their understanding of word attack. So you have to make sure that they're at that level first. There are some children, however, I must caution you, who are not very good at doing that because they're experiencing different challenges. Maybe they may have a learning problem, a learning difficulty that is affecting their ability to understand the different, or to differentiate the different sounds. But once the child doesn't have that challenge, then you can apply the principle of the phonemic awareness, where you together figure out what are the sounds you hear in the word. and then they'll represent that. So when spelling the word boat, for example, B, I hear B, and I hear O, and I hear T. So that would be the principle of spelling it. But in terms of seeing the word, when I see boat, I have to be able to figure out that B says B, O says, and O and A goes together. So unless they know that rule, they wouldn't be able to do that. O and A together with the vowel, two vowels go walking. The first one does the talking, so you can teach them that principle. So O and A together, we're the first letter calling its name. So it says O. So B, O, and then the last letter is what? T. T says T. So B, O, T. And so practicing that over and over every time you see a word, that helps them to be able to figure out the words. Now, as you get to a higher level, though, it takes more than that, because you have to understand all the rules of spelling and all of that to be able to do that. And at that stage, you can look at syllables. So if they know all the letters already, you can start looking at the different parts, the chunks of word, familiar words within the word. So if I'm looking at the word, for example, well, that's not a good example. Let me see if I can find shopping. So if I'm looking at the word shopping, I know the word shop, but I've never seen the word shopping before. Can I identify the word shop and then look at the last letters and pronounce those? So P would say P, I an ing, and so forth. So it comes down to their understanding of the letters of the words and how they're able to blend them. One easy way to work with your child in blending letters is to use letter tiles, or if you don't have letter tiles, it can be letter cards that they can rearrange depending on the words, or even magnetic letters to rearrange as they try to break up the words. Or you give them the word and they break it apart. You put the word in the magnetic letters and they break it apart by pronouncing each sound, sliding their finger under it or moving it around. Did I answer your question? Is there anything else you'd like to know?
Good morning, Miss Mark Bean, and good morning to everyone.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, good morning. I have a question pertaining to the TRIP program that is at Microcare.
Yes.
Yes. Based on your giving us now a parent workshop, I'd like to know if the TRIP program would continue in this regards, like all the parents, like all Michael offered to the parents a workshop and how to go about dealing with our children. Does the TRIP program continue? Because based on the COVID situation, I received few emails for some work to give my son, but that was it. And I'm finding this quite interesting now, based on Michael offering us this opportunity in the workshop area. I'd like to know if the TRIP program continues.
Okay, so
I don't know if you can answer my question. Okay,
so both the TRIP program, which is a tutorial program, TRIP stands for tutorial remedial.
Stands for tutorial remedial.
Mute your phone. Yes, right. So TRIP stands for Tutorial Remedial Intervention Program, and RIP is just Remedial Intervention Program. Both are still happening online. It's online instructions at the moment. And so the persons who would have been admitted to those programs are currently in the process of going through. So if your child is on the list, then, and they have not been called for this time, they will be called more likely for maybe the next term or somewhere along the line. Yes.
Oh, I have a question. I have I have a son. Okay, let me say I have a son. He is at grade, he's supposed to be at going into grade 5. It's supposed to be going into grade 4 now.
Yes.
Right? But he is not reading. He's not reading. He's missing some of the alphabet. He's unable to call like words like the sight words, they, them, it, you know, those simple words. And he came to the microcare. I'm not sure what the assessment was, right? He's my stepson, so I'm not, he's living in St. Elizabeth. But he comes by me over the summer, and I realized that he's not able to function, but his dad, I know he had done something at the microcare, and he was doing something at UE, but he's just not able to function, like, you know. So now I'm hearing about this trip RIP program. Is it something that he could get involved in, or his parents, his mom could get involved in? I could pass the information to his father or get his father to contact the microcare. I'm not, do you think it's something that would have helped him?
Sorry about that. You can call the center at any time to get additional information about the TRIP program or the RIP program, and they will give you the full information and tell you whether or not your child will be able to be admitted in the program at this time or at a later date. So please feel free to call the office regarding that question. So we will have to wrap up now. It's 1 hour. This brings us to the end of the presentation. It's been an hour. It's
Just
been
one question, please.
I would love to answer all your questions. You said one last question?
Yes, miss.
Okay, go ahead quickly, please.
I was the one who wrote about the comprehension.
Yes.
That's my 8-year-old son. When I read with him, I've been doing that since he was a child, and he takes up the reading like me, loves reading. But when you ask him question from a book that you and he have read, he will just like verbatim just quote what he just read to answer.
Okay.
He's not putting it into his own words, and it's when he answers it seems like he doesn't understand what he just read, because if you give him a critical thinking question that the answer is not in the story, he just is floored. He's floored.
All right, so
yes.
in that,
And
sorry,
and B, can I say B, my daughter, she's going into grade 6 this year, and she's the opposite of him. She doesn't like to read. So totally, when he would answer some comprehension question, she cannot at all, because and I think it's because she doesn't like to read. But both of them got the same reading experiences.
Have they been assessed? My question is that, have they been assessed?
No.
So you might want to contact the center to see if you can get them assessed, to see what the challenge is they're having. Because every child has a different issue, you know, that's affecting them and their reading and their comprehension. So we don't want to have a thorough understanding of that before we are able to, you know, give you any advice in that regard.
So just call in.
Yes, you can call in, or you can come in and give us a visit during office hours to have your child registered for assessment. All right.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you so much for your questions. I'd really love to spend more time answering all your questions, but that brings us we have to bring this presentation to a close. I'm so happy for all of
Miss, sorry, one moment. I just joined because I went on the road and I just came back. I just joined. I wanted to ask a question.
But this is the end of our presentation. You want to give us a call? Is it something? All right, go ahead quickly.
I called yesterday. I called yesterday because my son was in Miss Scott's class, and he was
Okay, so since your child is already in Miss Scott's class, man, call Miss Scott and talk with her.
he was there in January, but remember the pandemic. I just wanted to know if they were gonna take back the
Yes,
kids
yes.
that were there from January to April.
Right,
Morning,
and I
everyone.
understand the concern,
For
but I
any
wouldn't have
questions
the
that have to do with
answer to that
particularly the RIP
question at
program,
this time.
any questions with the RIP or TRIP program, please contact the center at this time. I want to thank everybody for joining us for this presentation, but we have to end. So if you have additional questions, feel free to contact the center at the number that's in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you everyone for coming, and do have yourselves a wonderful day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Great presentation.
Thank you.